We are, Lord, here to worship you with our hearts wide open. Tell your story.
Hi, I'm your host, Reggie Coates, and this series called Worship Leading Insights is a series of interviews with experienced worship leaders from the San Francisco Bay Area and from across the nation. And these worship leaders spent time sharing their wisdom with the high school worship team at Valley Christian Schools in San Jose, California, over Zoom. And may you be inspired and encouraged by their insights. Today's worship leading insights are from Tom Kraeuter, who serves as the Executive Director of Training Resources, a ministry devoted to strengthening Christians in their relationships with God and with one another. He is an author, worship leader, and speaker who has ministered in hundreds of churches to over 40 denominations. And some of his books, which I have used over the years for training, are The Worship Leader's Handbook, Things They Didn't Teach Me in Worship Leading School, and Keys to Becoming an Effective Worship Leader. Let's listen in.
I want to talk about offering substance. When we're leading worship, offering songs that have substance to them. And I just think this is such a big deal because a lot of people don't really think about this. You know, the fact is that we are teaching people, as we're leading worship, we're teaching people through the songs that we sing. You know, songs mix music with the lyrics. And because of that, they have a tendency to go more deeply inside of people. They're going to affect people more deeply than just the words alone. And so I think we need to consider, what does that mean? What's the ramification of that, if you will, for us as worship leaders? Colossians 3, you're probably familiar with the verse, let the word of Christ richly dwell within you with all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. That's a valid use for music in our services, is to teach people. And the only way you're going to do that is if you have some songs that have some real substance to them. James chapter 3, verse 1, one of my all-time, perhaps least favorite verses in the Bible, we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. You know, if you're a worship leader in a church and week after week you are bringing songs to the people, those songs are going inside of people and affecting how they think and ultimately how they live. That makes you, whether you like it or not, makes you a teacher. And therefore, James chapter 3, verse 1 applies to you. You will be judged with greater strictness. I hope that as you consider the idea of leading worship, whether it's at your school or at your church, that you understand the gravity of that, what that means, that you will be judged with greater strictness because you're choosing the songs that are going inside of people. This is a man that was known perhaps in many evangelical circles as Mr. Worship, the late Dr. Robert Weber. He wrote numerous books on the topic of worship. He compiled an 8-volume encyclopedia on worship. He said this: we need worship leaders who first understand the power of song to form depth of character and commitment. And second, these worship leaders need to choose songs that have the content that will form the worshiper. So what he's saying is we need people, worship leaders, who understand the impact that the songs that we're presenting are going to have on the people. And then secondly, based on that, we need to have those people choose songs that are going to have make a positive difference, have a positive influence in the lives of the people. There's so many songs that are used today in worship that are all about me, what I think, what I feel, what I believe. And I'm not saying don't use songs like that. I'm saying I just don't think they have a lot of depth as much as what they should. That's one of the reasons I think it's necessary for us as worship leaders to really immerse ourselves in Scripture, to understand what the Word is saying so that we can evaluate whether the songs are of real value for people that we're ministering those songs to. We need to understand initially the gospel, that we're awful, God's wonderful. He's made a way for us to be in right relationship with him. I mean, that's the primary thing. But along with that, understanding his faithfulness, his goodness, his greatness, all of those things that are going to cause people to worship him. And so having our focus there. So in order to have our focus there, in order to really grasp what that means, then again, we need to be immersed in Scripture. We need to be learning and growing in that. And so let me kind of make this practical for you. Here's why I think this is so very important. I've had the crazy privilege of ministering in hundreds of different churches all over North America, over 40 different denominations. So that means I've been in churches that believe very differently than I do at times. And there have been numerous times where we've been on Sunday morning, we're going through a time of praise and worship, and the songs are projected up on the screen or up on the wall, whatever. And I'm looking at the words and I'm going, that line right there, if they really are what they say on the sign out in front, they shouldn't be singing those words in this church. And I'm not saying I've seen it happen once or twice. I've seen it happen again and again and again, because the worship leader is not conversant with what they really believe. So we need to be really, really careful. And the problem, as I see it, is that oftentimes the people who are choosing the songs of what's being sung in the church, they are, if I can say it this way and not have anybody too offended with me, they are musicians. And we musicians are, I think, too easily swayed by a pretty melody or a nice arrangement into singing some less than adequate words. You know, I've had people say, hey, did you hear this song? And my response is, well, yeah, but what about these words right here? Oh, no, you need to listen to this song. Yeah, but what about these words here? Well, no, you have to hear the. You following me? We need to be really cautious and not be swayed by the melody into singing some words that are clearly not biblical. You know, one of my friends, Bob Coughlin, he likes to say that what you should do before you ever think about looking at a song is to look at the words. Don't listen to it so that you're swayed by the melody. Look at just the words. Would you be willing to use those words in the service if the melody is awful? And if so, I think you might be closer to where you need to be. Now, my personal bent on this is that I highly recommend, and I've been saying this for years in seminar settings, I highly recommend that you use a lyric screening committee. Now, please understand two things. First, I do not like committees. All right. So if I'm telling you to have one, take this really, really seriously. Secondly, if you're going to have a committee, at least have the forethought to keep it small. My suggestion in a church setting is that you have maybe 3 people, hopefully both genders represented, hopefully a variety of ages, but they need to be people that are really strong on the theology of your church. They need to know what you believe and why you believe it from a biblical perspective. So when the worship leader decides, hey, I'd like to use this song, the lyric screening committee people get just the lyrics. Not a CD, not an MP3, nothing to sway, not even scored music, nothing to sway their opinion about those lyrics, just the words. And if the lyric screening committee people say we can do the song, we can do the song. If they say no, guess what? We're not doing that song. And don't get yourself all bent out of shape about not getting the song used. Find another one. There's hundreds more out there. I think we could save ourselves lots of headaches by doing something as simple as that. And I've had so many people who have told me after a seminar and even, sent me like an email later or something saying, when you said that, I hated it, but I realized later that this is really good, sound way of being sure that what we're actually presenting in our churches is biblical, is really up to our standard of where it should be. And again, teachers are going to be judged with greater strictness. So I want to be really, really cautious with this to make sure that what I'm presenting is really something of value that's going to make a difference from a biblical perspective.
And we are just working on songwriting. So not only does what you have apply to worship leading, but also as we think about our song creation, you got to think about our words. And
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
I think that's a great thing.
I don't know if you're familiar with a preacher named Alistair Begg. He's on lots and lots of radio stations. And
I love him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. that Scottish accent. I mean, I wish I could talk like that, just because it makes people pay more attention, you know. I heard a recording of him a while back. He said he was visiting a church, and this goes along with what I just talked about, but it's a little bit tangential to it, really. He talked about visiting a church on Sunday morning, and the worship leader stands up and he says, "Hey, how y'all doing this morning? How y'all feeling this morning?" And Alistair, at least in his mind, he didn't actually say this, but at least in his mind, he was thinking, if I told you how I feel, especially in light of the last 5 minutes, you would question whether I was even a Christian at all. Goodness, at 8:30 on a Sunday morning, I'm barely ambulatory. I can't start there. And you want me to say that? I just kicked the dog. I don't even have a dog. I got in an argument with someone because they took my parking space. I spilled my coffee. I didn't read my Bible. I'm a miserable wretch. And now you want me to start here? How do you feel? I feel rotten. That's how I feel. That's why you have to get yourself under the control of the scriptures. That's why it is what we know, the truths of the scriptures, that fuel our hearts and emotions and lead us on. Hence, and this is an older song, all right. Praise my soul, the King of heaven, to his feet thy tribute bring. Ransomed, healed, restored, forgiven. Who like thee his praise shall sing? Okay, now we have something to sing about, for we have been reminded of truth. You have been ransomed, you have been healed, you have been restored, you have been forgiven. You're looking away from yourself now. You're looking out into Christ, and it is in this that we have something that fuels our praise. I love that, because he is putting his finger, I think, on a major, crucial area that I think a lot of worship leaders really make a mistake in. I just saw probably two days ago on a Facebook group that I'm a part of for worship leaders, where they were asking, well, how do you start your service? And so many people said, well, I just start off and say, hey, it's a great day, isn't it? Or how do you feel today? Or, you know what? When I start off, I don't care how people feel. I really don't. Because what I want to do is I want to change how they feel. I want to focus them on the fact that they are redeemed children of God. I want them to understand the truth of the gospel right off the bat, because when they do that, they're going to be much more willing to enter into worshiping God. It is something that I think a lot of people really miss. And yet it is so, to me, it's so foundational, so fundamental, that's the place that I begin. I almost always start with a song that has a clear presentation of the gospel in it, because I want to do exactly what I'm saying here, where I don't care how you feel when you come in. I mean, if you feel great, that's wonderful. If you don't, that's fine too, because we're going to take all of us to a place where we understand the truth of the word about what God says about us, and it's going to change how we feel, whether we're feeling good or bad. So to me, that's a major issue that I think is missed by a lot of worship leaders. And for me, for years has been like a foundational thing for me that has caused me to be more effective in leading, because people are affected by what I'm doing.
Here we are, Lord, here to worship you with our hearts wide open.